Sulak Sivaraksa is a scholar, servant from Thailand and an activist.
You should learn to transform greed into generosity, to transform violence into loving kindness, and to transform delusion into real understanding or wisdom.
Gemeinsam mit dem Dalai Lama.
Together with Dalai Lama, he founded the International Network of Engaged Buddhists, standing up for liberty, human rights, and protecting the environment.
You care for yourself, you care for all sentient beings.
In Vorträgen und Gastprofessuren vermittelt er, wie Spiritualität.
As a lecturer and visiting professor, he conveys how spirituality can be used to solve political and ecological conflicts. 2 times he has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and in 1995 he was awarded the Right Livelihood Award. Neon Green Network welcomes Sulak Sivaraksa.
Buddhism asserts that a basic human condition is that we are empty and lacking beings. More precisely, we are beings who worry all the time about lacking something and being deficient and incomplete. This condition leads to dissatisfaction and unhappiness. Worse, the common way that promised to lift us from unhappiness ultimately make us more dissatisfied and depressed. From a Buddhist perspective, that is because they are inseparable from the root cause of suffering: greed, hatred, and delusion. For instance, feeling deficient, we have to consume endlessly. If only I can have that thing, if only I can have more of it, if only I have the latest products which are newer and better, and thus they will fulfill me. We are always in search of the ultimate product that will make us whole again, forgetting that we were never complete in the first place, that there is no self to return to. Needless to say, this has implications for ecology. We see others as our competitors. If only they are not around, we will be complete and happy. We hate them for robbing us of the happiness that is within our reach, for cutting the line. We are especially threatening when they are immigrants. They even seem to be enjoying themselves by making us unhappy. We are deluded to thinking that there is no alternative to capitalism, either because we buy into its sweet promise for a better future, in which we all will be fulfilled, or because we feel that although capitalism may not be the best system, for example, given the gross inequality it breeds and how it intensifies and accelerates ecological degradation, it is unrealistic and impractical to replace it. We delude ourselves into believing that nothing has to change, that science and technology will ultimately save us from climate change, that some green billionaire or conservation group will take care of things for us. In short, we become attached to a system that hurts us. Buddhism then claims that the real path to happiness entails the overcoming of greed, hate, and delusion, or more precisely, their transformation into generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. This is the essence of Buddhism. In a nutshell, the highest goal of Buddhism is to awaken and realize that we can all be enlightened like the Buddha. The Sanskrit word for Buddha means the awakened one. Dhamma, or the Buddha's teaching, serve as the path towards this awakening. Happiness is not found at the end of this path, but gradually emerges once we are traveling on it. For instance, when we are concerned about the well-being of others, when we practice altruism and solidarity, when we struggle together to make society more equal. Happiness in this sense is grounded in being together and practicing universalism. Put another way, one is not born a Buddhist, but becomes one. Strictly speaking, one becomes a Buddhist by taking what is called the three refuges. I go to the Buddha for refuge. I go to the Dhamma for refuge. I go to the Sangha for refuge. This is the heart of being Buddhist. Let me briefly explain on what going to the Buddha for refuge means. It means I don't go to spirits, celestial beings, evil ones for refuge. Nor do I go to the military generals, the president, bankers, politicians, fortune tellers, movie stars. I do not depend on them for protection from danger. Only the Buddha is able to help me to try to overcome danger or fear. We are filled with fear. Fear is part of our nature. Why? We fear being deficient and incomplete. We fear pain, old age, death, suffering, losing our property, losing our loved ones, losing our status and reputation. We become anxious and angry at the dangers. We have those who instill fear in us. We are lured by cheap answers that promise to rid us of these fears. In Buddhism, when fear is overcome, danger will disappear. When this happens, we will learn to forgive even our enemies. This is because for Buddhists, the primary enemies are greed, hatred, and delusion. But there's a little twist in what going to the Buddha for refuge means. The Buddha states, I quote, "You are your own master, O my follower. You should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather through investigation and experiment." End of quote. In other words, even though we take refuge in the Buddha, he is not like a supreme leader who prohibits or forces us into things. He doesn't demand our blind obedience. Moreover, he does not even have the power to make us happy. Only we can make ourselves happy. Ultimately, taking refuge in the Buddha implies that we are the answer that we have been waiting for. To sum up briefly, going to the Buddha for refuge implies that as ordinary people, we can follow the Buddha's path, that we can likewise be enlightened. The path is spelled out in the teachings, the Dhamma, and embodied by the Sangha, the community of those ordained believers. The Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha are thus like three rings that make up a single knot. Taking three refuges nourishes the ground for the seeds of Buddha nature to grow in a devotee. Put another way, Buddha nature is latent within each and every one of us. We will enable it to flourish or strive its growth. But I am not here to fossilize you. Anyone who finds the Dhamma valuable in helping to overcome suffering should be able to practice it without having to convert to Buddhism. The Dhamma benefits everyone, Buddhists as well as non-Buddhists, even non-believers. For instance, the practice of mindfulness may help to lessen self-attachment and minimize exploitation in interpersonal relations. For non-Buddhists and non-believers, the Dhamma can serve as what the Dalai Lama calls secular spirituality, or a kind of spirituality that is practical. Spirituality, as everyone practices, a sense of concern over the other's well-being. A point that cannot be overemphasized is that suffering is not only personal, but also social and environmental. Depression or unhappiness is not primarily because of chemical imbalance in your body. Rather, personal, social, and environmental sufferings are interconnected in the web of life. It may not be readily apparent, but capitalism and consumerism are the leading cause of violence and suffering in the present world. When we can see through all the connections, possibility to end suffering with wisdom may emerge. As such, Buddhism must be concerned equally about personal and social transformation, which are like the two sides of the same coin. This is because humans are interrelational beings. Thich Nhat Hanh even calls human beings interbeing. In other words, we cannot afford to, as David Lloyd put it, I quote, be indifferent to what is happening to others and the world generally. In this respect, Buddhism must reinvent itself to be able to cope with the multifaceted challenges of the modern world, from social appetite to climate change. To continue this train of thought, the reduction and eventual elimination of class inequality is important. Buddhism must pay attention to political economy. I would even risk an argument. Good Buddhists have to be anti-capitalist and a bit of a Marxist. Or for a non-Buddhist and non-believers, in order to be happy, you have to be anti-capitalist and a bit of a Marxist. I am not the first person to make this claim. If you recall, the Dalai Lama even asserted that he is a Marxist. As he stated in 1993, I quote, The economic system of Marxism is founded on moral principles, while capitalism is concerned only with gain and profitability. Marxism is concerned with the distribution of wealth on equal basis, as well as the fate of those who are underprivileged and in need. And it cares about the victims of minority imposed exploitation. For this reason, the system appealed to me and it seemed fair. End of quote. In sum, the dilemma implies that both Buddhism and Marxism defend equalitarianism and are concerned about the marginalized, the voiceless, the invisible in the world. Equally important, like Marxism, Buddhism too is critical of the way of the world. It's concerned about changing the world. Happiness must take place in this life and this world rather than the next one. The way of this world, however, are not conducive to happiness of the majority of people. The point then is to change the world. In other words, if you don't want to talk about capitalism, you should remain silent on happiness. The same logic applies to tackling climate change. I also raised the problem of class inequality and political economy in an event on environmentalism, because ecological catastrophes often hurt the poor and the social excluded more gravely than the rich and the powerful. Think of environmental racism and climate refugees, for instance. This is where the international network of engaged Buddhism come in. No, eine is not a Marxist organization, but it is likewise interested in making sense of and addressing the social, political, economic, and ecological causes of suffering. It asserts that Buddhism can act as a platform for, not a barrier to, emancipation. Hence the name Engaged Buddhism. Sometimes this, from a Buddhist point of view, is called socially engaged Buddhism or socially engaged spirituality. Socially engaged Buddhism implies that there's also a kind of Buddhism that may be atomistic, obsessed with individual happiness and salvation, sociopathic. And when Buddhism acts in these modes, it becomes, as Marx put it, of religion, the opium of the people. It becomes a barrier to social change by helping to stabilize or sugarcoat the unjust social order. Take the example of meditation. Has meditation not transformed into a truly ideological and therefore safe practice? Is it not a way to help one escape back into reality as it is? Is it not a practice that is possible and achievable within capitalism? In one online article published by Business Insider entitled 14 Things Successful People Do Before Breakfast, meditation is on the list. Here, successful people mean the world's richest folks, the plutocrats. Remember that we are living in a world in which 8 individuals have as much wealth as half the world's population. The article claims, I quote, before they head out the door, many successful people devote themselves to a spiritual practice, such as meditation or prayer, to center themselves for the rush of the day. End of quote. Small wonder that David Lloyd asked this in his wonderful little book, A New Buddhist Path. I quote, "Is Western Buddhism being commodified and co-opted into a self-help stress reduction program that adapts to institutionalized dukkha, that is suffering, leaving practitioners atomized and powerless?" End of quote. Needless to say, engaged Buddhism is not against meditation. It merely asserts that mainstream meditation enables its practitioners to be fully awake in the capitalist world. The point, however, is to force a disruptive awakening to change the world. As David Lloyd clearly stressed, modern Buddhism should be, I quote again, modern Buddhism should be opening up new perspectives and possibilities that challenge us to transform ourselves and our society so that they become more socially just and ecologically sustainable. End of quote. Back to eine, which was founded in 1989. eine is a truly international network. Today it operates in more than 25 countries on different continents. It links Buddhists from various sects together. It cooperates with other religious groups as well as non-believers. Briefly, eine sees Buddhism as a social religion and pushes Buddhism to reinvent itself in order to confront some of the main challenges of the 21st century, from climate change to class inequality. Please check out the eine website to keep track of its current activities. More recently, when I received the Shumna Bajat Award in India in the year 2014, I used the whole prize money to set up a university for socially engaged Buddhism under the rubrics of eine. This university now offers an MA degree in socially engaged Buddhism. To conclude this short talk, I would like to stress again that engaged Buddhism is for development. But in a Buddhist sense, the Buddhist word for development is bhavana. It entails appropriate physical growth based on nonviolence, social growth on cooperation and solidarity, mental growth on selflessness, and spiritual growth on liberation of the individual as well as all sentient beings. Thank you for your attention.
Sulak, Sivaraksa, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, I think that many people, and the reaction in this room proves it, many people feel that you are right, that capitalism and greed has made us unhappy and is ultimately destroying our planet. But still, this seems to be the way the world runs. Do you have any hope? The fall of capitalism has been predicted many times. Do you have any hope that humanity will change its way?
We can make capitalism better. I give you concrete example in my own country. A group of entrepreneurs have formed themselves calling social venture network. These entrepreneurs don't only look for profit. Number one, they look at themselves. Many capitalists work so hard just for money, but now many of them feel that they should spend some time for themselves and their family, honor members of their family, and honor those who work for them, let the labor also have share in their company. Let the labor leaders also join the board of management, and they come together that they must not exploit nature. We use nature appropriately. And we don't use advertising to tell lies to people. And certain amount of profit, they share with NGO, try to change the world in the better. I'm pretty sure in Austria you must have this. Because although you can not get away of capitalism, make capitalism more reasonable. And the capitalist people could be wonderful people.
Do you believe, as you observe the world, that capitalism, at least in parts of the world, is getting better, is evolving in a way?
You know, ideally, capitalism is certainly promoting greed. But if you can talk to some of those entrepreneurs that they can limit their greed and they can make profit not entirely for greed, to share the profit. You see, in Buddhism, sharing, giving is more important than taking. And once you have this understanding, things could work better than it stands.
So, as we are heading for a home stretch this evening, I wanted to ask all of you, our keynote speakers who have inspired us tonight, what your takeaway is from this evening, from the other speakers you've heard about. What's your message you can take away from this evening? Andrea, you have the very difficult task of going first.
You have time? Well, to me, it's very, very nice to see different angles and different approach to pretty much the same problem. And we have an example here on this stage, and I'm sure in the audience as well. So it's from my mind was always looking for innovation from different angles. It's very enriching to see same goal, but very, very different approaches and angles and ideas, so it's very, very important for me to see.
Thank you. Bonnie?
I think that activism and interest to make change is growing, as the size of this audience demonstrates. But we cannot be complacent. We actually have to act collectively, have courage to do it, and don't wait for tomorrow, do it today.
Mr. Sivaraksa.
I learned from you, anger should be acknowledged. And then you can transform anger into wisdom, and the work will be more accomplished. I used to belong to Greenpeace Southeast Asia, and they are tremendous working. But I feel that if they can learn to breathe more properly, have some to overcome anger, it would help. I myself was fighting against Total and Unicor together. They're building gas pipeline from Burma to my country. And I tried to stop them, but they put me in jail. But I have to learn not to hate them. And in this case, I was defeated. I was put in jail. Luckily, I won the case after fighting for 4 years. So I want to share my experience with you. And I admire you for climbing.